What is up, guys, and welcome back. This is episode 3 of the Dawn of Man series, where we dive into a lot of futuristic topics that never get talked about and really identify, things that we all need to be aware of, things that we need to be discussing, and changes that we need to start implementing when it comes to technology and society in order to go towards a thriving future. In today's episode, I want to talk about the future of work in an age of automation. And the first things that come to mind for most people when they hear automation and future of work, some kind of dystopian world where people don't have any work anymore because robots are stealing away the jobs. And that's something we already see now in 2018, where people are complaining that a lot of manufacturing jobs are getting lost because we got machines. So in this episode, I want to break it down to 3 simple steps. It's like A, where is the trend heading? B, what changes are already being made and what changes do we need to be making when it comes to dealing with automation? And thirdly, identifying, is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? And if it's one of the two, how can we make sure that it is a good thing? Okay? So let's first look at the trends. Over the past years, we've seen lots of automation. It's no longer a thing of the future. It's not like, by 2030, we will be automating this and that. Things are already being automated. The internet in itself has automated so many things. If you think about, for example, Amazon has cut down so many processes where you've had multiple different middlemen. Now it's a lot fewer. We're in the age of decentralization, in the age where we cut out middlemen, so more and more steps get automated, right? So that's the first step. But to take it a level further, manufacturing. We got a lot of machines that are already doing jobs that used to need people to be doing. So when we look at automation, there's different steps in automation that we're going through. The first step of automation is essentially automating processes. So, and this is something that is really valuable to you when you look into getting a career, especially if you're young, where you can know hey, is my career going to be automated in the future? If your career or your job only focuses on a process, meaning actions, meaning a set of action that's basically tied together, that's process. And that is something a machine can do. So the different levels are, processes, analysis, and creativity. That is where I see the 3 stages of automation. We're already in the stage where most processes get automated because it's a step-by-step thing. It's super easy to program. You tell the machine, hey, you tally up those numbers, you pull the numbers from here to here, and then you make a calculation and so on. So for example, with that example, a lot of accounting is getting more and more automated, right? So back in the day, you need to have multiple people, run the books, keep tallies. It involves so much actual mind power. We've got calculators, we've got Excel spreadsheets where the average kid with a startup has better accounting than some bigger company had back in the day, right? So the first step of automation is processes. So anything that can be essentially be put into a logical order, saying, action A is followed by action B, is followed by action C, that it will be automated. Okay. Step 2 of automation is analysis. So this is something that is still, those a lot more of the white collar jobs that feel very safe right now, right? So you think, for example, a doctor, right? So a doctor looks at you, looks at all the symptoms, and he makes, an educated decision. Look, I think you have XYZ, I'm going to treat you with it. Right now, those kind of jobs are not being as automated as most. The reason being because obviously, a lot of computing is not as intellectual yet, where it can make these educated decisions, where it can look at a lot of data and make those calls. But that's something that's happening right now. With big data, machine learning, and so on, we are getting to a stage where computers don't just become as adept at making educated decisions based on data, but becoming so much better than humans, right? And so this is one of the big changes in automation that I believe will be happening in the next 5 to 10 years, where most analysis jobs will be replaced through automation. Because why trust, a doctor that has, he has a limited education, so to say. He went to a medical school, we'll give him props for that. He read a handful of books, but he's not aware of all the other knowledge in the world. What if a computer would have access to a database of millions of people that have had several symptoms, and if several symptoms were treated with certain medication, that was the outcome? It becomes very scientific in the sense that he sees, hey, 90% of the time, when a person maybe with these kind of conditions, with that kind of symptom, was treated with this medication, this was the result. Now we're talking real science. It's no longer like a guessing game based on book education. It is actual statistics, it's actual numbers. So the second step of automation is an analytical automation, and that is something that is impending and already being implemented in small amounts. Now the third level of automation will be creativity, because it is one thing to have a computer look at a lot of data and make statistical decisions, but it's a lot harder to, for example, have a computer to like compose a masterpiece, to write a play, to write a movie, and so on. We've seen several AI try to accomplish such a feat, but a lot of them turn out really weird, really awkward, where programmers basically fed them a lot of cultural works, and then they spit out a weird mumbo jumbo that it was supposed to reflect, for example, a script for a movie. So what we'll be seeing a lot in the future, and this is where I see the trend heading, is that the first step, we automate processes. It's already happening. For example, if you're a driver, you probably won't be driving for much longer, because self-driving cars will become more and more of a thing. If you're an accountant, that will be more and more automated, and so on. Secondly, if you have an analytical job, you maybe got, I would say, 10 to 15 more years until that will be also more or less 100% automated. With the only exception, I think, you will have humans verify it. So instead of having, for example, 5 human analysts, you'll have several AI run, and then as a second pair of eyes, you'll have technicians make sure that all the code was executed properly, that the algorithms are not making any faults, because that's the biggest thing. What you have to realize with automation, unless we're talking about machine learning, all these algorithms that are written, and I always talk about this when we talk about trading bots, any algorithm that's written is still subject to human error. Why? Because it's written by humans. So you will see less analyst jobs. And when I say analyst jobs, we're not just talking, stock analysts. I'm talking stuff like, doctors, people that have to look at a vast amount of knowledge and make educated decisions. But you'll still have technicians, lots of technicians overlooking the AI, making sure, like testing, basically back testing and split testing a lot of the algorithms to see how they perform. That is a job that will actually be seen increase while most decrease. And then lastly, creatives. I think creatives will be the last job to be replaced. In fact, I think there's 2 job categories, so to say, that will take longest to be replaced, if ever. The first is creatives, as we said, whether it's musicians, artists, filmmakers, writers, and so on. It will take a long time for AI to become as adept in creating such, I guess, beauty until as humans can. Because here's the thing, it is so much harder to program. A lot of technicians, they can set rules. They can say, do step A, then do step B, do step C, and the robot will be 10 out of 10 times more efficient than a human because they don't get distracted. A technician can also say, hey, take all this data that I'm going to give you, put all the data together, see how different pieces correlate, and then we'll see, what input will bring a certain output. Analysis, essentially. Again, that's something a technician can do. But getting a technician to essentially teach or program an AI to develop art, for example, something that will resonate with people, is going to be a lot harder and will take a lot longer. Plus, more importantly, it's not lucrative to program. So a lot of people will be throwing money at creating really strong analysis AI, deep learning AI, while they're not going to do so for art, because there's very little investment money being thrown at art. So that's one. But secondly, the other industry, so to say, that will survive and thrive is the industry of influence. Influence and trust cannot, or at the very least, it's very, very hard to be automated. Because look, in the future, like you already see this now. You can buy all the ads you want. You can run bots to like people's shit and stuff like that. But it is very hard to buy or fake trust, right? So for example, you have that influencer that you follow. You have that celebrity that, you or the expert whose advice you follow. They built this trust up over a long time. They built this influence up over a long time. And it's based on a human relationship. That is something that an AI cannot fake. So I think influence is one of the best investments you can make right now. And it's also part of why, I am building a personal brand, because I know that influence will take the longest time to be replaced. Because look, maybe, the AI can be smarter than me and, maybe doing some analysis. The AI will be 100% more productive, in executing menial tasks. But when it comes to actually influencing people, when it comes to spreading a message, the human connection will always prevail. So, step 2 is looking at what changes are being made and what changes need to be made. And it also specifically applies to your own life as well. So if you find yourself, pursuing a job or career that is a mere process, you have to understand that that job or career will be replaced in the long term. Same thing applies for analysis. You basically have to find a way where the unique value proposition that you have cannot be automated, where what is so unique to you that a machine could not copy, right? So, of course, I think it's an attempt in vain to try to beat a machine in the long run. But at the very least, I think this is something to be aware of. Because something that I'm going to be so sick of hearing is that in 10 years or 15 years, when half the world is going to cry, oh, I lost my job to the machines. Well, wake up now. It is 2018. We're already seeing these changes. And you cannot be so ignorant as to just pursue something that is already inches from being automated and then complain that machines are stealing your jobs. Machines aren't stealing your jobs. You simply chose a job that is not necessary. Why would somebody waste the money on hiring a human when a machine can do it much faster and more efficiently and cheaper than you can? So have that realism, have that honesty with yourself. So that's step 1. And when it comes to these changes, that's something that I talked about in a previous video. I think one of the biggest changes that will happen as a result of automation is that we will see UBI, Universal Basic Income, being implemented, which means that every single person, essentially, in a country, the government has to decide upon this, basically receives monthly income, more or less, just for existing. Because the reality is, if you cut out all the process jobs, if you cut out all the analysis jobs over time, most people will be unemployed. They don't have any work, right? So this seems pretty dystopian when you look at it from afar, where most people won't really have any work because everything can be done better by machines. So you know what? Instead of having to keep you busy, we'll just pay a little money for you to get around. That is the more dystopian view of how to look at it. But that's where we're going to combine number 2 and 3 right now, because I want to really compare those two alternatives. Because the one alternative is where yes, everything becomes dystopian, where 90% of the world has no job, and then also because they have no job, they lack meaning, and they simply don't know what to do with their lives, because out of a job we find meaning. Okay, so with a lack of meaning, there will be a lot more depression, there will be a lot more suicide rates. Most people will be seeking some purpose in VR. That is what I think can happen. But how about this? What about this other alternative, where if we remove the need to do all these, what a lot of people complain about right now, the 9 to 5. What if we use this change to essentially start a new renaissance? A renaissance where people can actually pursue their creative endeavors. There's a big chance that I think in the coming years we'll see a renaissance where people can actually pursue, more of the art side of their own. Where we had, and this is why I'm saying the Renaissance. Back in the original Italian Renaissance, we had an all-time high of writers, painters, composers, and so much art being made, so much exploration of the human soul, of the human consciousness. And I think something like that can reemerge. So I think by 2050, because most jobs can be automated, we'll have more philosophers, we'll have more writers, we'll have more musicians, we'll have so many forms of art and expression that we currently don't have. And the reason why we're going to have these is because everything else we don't really need anymore. We don't need somebody to drive us around because we can have a self-driving car. We don't need to have somebody making cars. Tesla's already automating the building of cars. We don't need people to work in stores because everything is probably getting drone delivered to our front door, or at least delivered by automated cars. So all of these jobs, 90% of the jobs that exist right now won't be around. So we will need to restructure and rethink, what we're all about. So we can either look at it this way, where it's this dystopia where people drug themselves in VR and people don't have meaning, or we can just accept that things will change. And I think this is the biggest thing. We need to have acceptance, and we have to go with knowing things will be different, but it's not a bad thing. We can't look at it as like, oh, things used to be better. People used to have manufacturing jobs. Like I keep hearing this line, like we're losing all these manufacturing jobs. There's change, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Much rather, we're shifting the paradigm where we're moving towards, and more, it can be utopian, where we get more in touch with what it means to be human. And I think what it means to be human compared to an AI is embracing the creativity, embracing, that the thing that we have inside of us, where we will have more art, we'll have more philosophy, and so on. And with that, UBI will become a necessity, but it won't be the limiting ground. Because, we all will have money, because, we can produce as much as we want. The only limitation we'll have, I guess, is the resources, the ground beneath us. And with that, I think we can live in a future, in a thriving future, where everyone will be off better, where everyone has more access to things that people don't have access to right now, and actually have the time to pursue the things we want to pursue. But the bottom line that we need to embrace right now is that things will change. What you need to be aware of is that whatever industries you get involved in, know, is this going to be automated, or is this something that I can actually build for the long run? Because so many people will get blindsided by what the future holds for them. So, all things considered, it does not have to be dystopia. It can actually be the greatest utopia we've seen, because it can be a re-emergence of the Renaissance, a new era where we get in touch, with what it means to be human compared to being an AI. And actually, see more creativity, see more exploration, see more free thought, see more basically embracing and defying the limits of what we thought possible. Because we can either see it as a limitation, where we say, look, automation and UBI and all that will rob us of that meaning, or we can create meaning. So I want to put it to your heart that when you watch this and you think about your future, think about it this way. Are the things I'm pursuing right now something that might be automated in the near future? And if it is so, then I would urge you to at least think about how you can provide some value that is unique to you, that cannot be automated, that goes so far beyond a set of tasks that can be pre-programmed. And beyond that, even maybe there's something that you truly enjoy this career, but you know what, it's not going to be here to stay. At least be open to that change. Know it is coming and have a backup plan. And then I think, once we'll have this conversation again, maybe in 10 years, be open for that change where you can embrace the future, so that it won't be that dystopia where people go off to the VR to drug themselves and just escape reality, but much rather we'll create a new reality. The base reality that will be so thriving and so full of opportunities. Because the truth is, if all of us could just quit our 9-to-5 today and get universal basic income to cover our needs, imagine the freedom of thought we'd all have. But the bottom line, that will all be a question of mindset. And that's something I rarely like to talk about, because everybody talks about mindset. But I think when we talk about the future of work, and I've thought about this a lot, because generally I tend on the dystopian side, I really do think there's great things in store for us if we approach the right way. But the bottom line is, we shouldn't make automation the enemy, but rather embrace it and look at it as a way of taking things further. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on the subject. Leave some comments below. I would love to hear, where do you see automation going? Do you think it's a bad thing? Should we just cut it off? If it was up to you, would you just cut it off and leave things the way they are right now, where people, have normal regular jobs and, pursue their things? Or would you go full on ahead and essentially, what is your vision of the future when it comes to that field? Do you believe that we can have a new renaissance? If so, let me know below, and also let me know what you're working on and how that will fit into that future. Either way, guys, I'm always appreciative of you. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
Yeah, this my note if I die. Think I tried to write this song 370 times. I could never say this, but I think for a reason that's so much bigger than me.